Can Japan capture their first Breeders' Cup Classic? Let's highlight Forever Young. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, along with my colleague Kaylie Shapiro, and welcome to another Breeders' Cup Classic Spotlight, this one on Japan's Forever Young. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button on NYRA Bets YouTube to get all of our Breeders' Cup content. Kaylie, we're highlighting all of these great runners, and Forever Young, a horse you and I both have been a big fan of for well over a year now.
Definitely. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Forever Young. Certainly when he ran in the Derby, he captured my heart a little bit there. I know a lot of people were on him before that, but I just thought that was so gutsy. And on this series, I mean, I'm really excited to just highlight all the contenders in the Classic and to join you this year for it, because I think this is one of the most loaded fields that we've seen in a long time.
It certainly is. And speaking of how loaded it is, of course, the top three contenders from last year's Breeders' Cup Classic, Sierra Leone, Fierceness, and Forever Young, are all coming back to run this year. And the kicker is they're not even going to be the favorites. So that really shows you just how deep this field is. But let's dive in and talk about Yoshito Yahagi's horse, Forever Young, the 4-year-old. And he has a distinction in this field as being the biggest money earner, actually, has earned over $15 million in winnings, in large part due to his victory over Romantic Warrior in that Saudi Cup this year. But he is a gutsy horse and a really impressive one who just turns in an honest effort every single time out.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be so cool to see this horse get, his time in the sun and for Japan in the Classic. We would love to see it. And what I'm kind of starting off, on this Forever Young, thinking about maybe how he fits in with the group this year, because we know how he fits in with last year's group pretty well. I mean, he ran pretty consistently against those horses whenever he came to America in the Derby as well as the Breeders' Cup Classic. But I do think that we have a lot more horses this year that makes it even more difficult. And I just wonder how Forever Young's going to fit in with this group, but he's certainly one of the most talented horses in the field.
Yeah, he certainly is. And obviously an incredibly impressive run in that Saudi Cup, which we're going to show you in a second. But let's go back to last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. He finished third in that race. And I think it's important to remember both he and Fierceness were sitting very similar trips, very close to the pace. And we're a little bit compromised by the fact Derma Sotogake was setting those insanely fast fractions up front. And yet he still showed something to me, at least coming down the stretch. And you see the fractions there, 109 and 2 to the 6 furlong mark, just insane. But there's Fierceness up on the head. And you see Forever Young kind of sitting fourth at that point behind everyone in the red silks. And Sierra Leone makes his move to the front here. But notice what happens when Forever Young finally gets to the right lead right here. He gets to the right lead, and all of a sudden he hits another little bit of acceleration, and suddenly he's picking up horses and tracking them down. That's been his issue before, where he doesn't switch leads until late in a race. We saw that when he was very young in the Saudi Derby against Bookham Dano, where he never switched leads and still managed to win. He's a grinder. He's not so much, he doesn't have that big burst, but in this year's Classic, there's not as much pace. He can sit closer to the pace. And I just don't think he's going to be kind of compromised this year as he might have been last year.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I think that there's significantly less pace presence in this year's Classic for sure. And seeing the way that he continued to run on and almost hit another gear, like you said, when he switched to his right lead, forgive me for not knowing, but has he had this problem recently, or is this something that genuinely was, when he was 3?
I think it was more of a 3. It's a little bit similar to Sierra Leone in that he and Sierra both had their quirks a little bit. And Forever Young still does have his quirks to some extent. He likes making an outside run. Stop me if you've heard that before with Sierra Leone, right? He likes making an outside run. He doesn't always love kickback, but some of that's the Japanese running surface. And then he does have that tendency to just stay on the wrong lead for a little too long. And really, Ryusuke Sakai has to really kind of go to that right-handed crop to get him to switch leads. But when he does, he's got that burst. And you see it here in the Saudi Cup as well. This was as a 4-year-old going up against the international superstar Romantic Warrior. And here he is sitting second into the stretch. And you think, man, Romantic Warrior's just going to hold him off. And Forever Young, again, in those red silks, switches to the outside. And here's what he does. He just grinds in that long stretch there. And all of a sudden, again, goes to the crop. Boom. Now we're going to start tracking people down. And now we're going to get Romantic Warrior. But he just grinds away, obviously winning the richest race in the world.
Very impressive effort there for sure. And definitely it's encouraging, like we said, that he was able to hang on and even continue to run on in last year's classic with those suicidal fractions that, he was facing. And I'd imagine that, like you said, he should sit a better trip this year. I just do wonder, I hate, to poke holes in the horse. He's a talented horse. I don't think he'll go in my top 4. I'm just going to say it right now whatsoever. He's really not a horse that I think is continuing to improve. I haven't seen him. I don't know. Speed figures over, you can't really tell.
It's hard. Yeah.
But I do wonder just how much this horse has improved, because Sierra Leone, who is pretty comparable as of last year, you know what I mean? Just continues to improve, and he's worked out all of his quirks. So Forever Young, if he comes over here with no quirks and he sits a nice trip, sure, I think that the horse can very well get into the top 3, top 4, as he's always done when he shows up in America. But for me, I just wonder, how he's going to stack up with these horses that have continued to improve, and Fierceness has too. And he's worked out his quirks too. And now you have Sovereignty. I mean, for me, it's just, the waters are so deep that
they are. You have Sovereignty, you have Journalism, you have Mind Frame, you have a little Locked, you have Antiquarian, you have a lot of nice horses in this field. And the interesting part about Forever Young is that, of course, because he's from Japan, they have a slightly different racing calendar than a lot of us do over here, where they actually take a lot of the summers off for many of their horses. So after that Saudi Cup, he ran again in the Dubai World Cup, finished 3rd that day. You could tell he kind of bounced after that huge effort in the Saudi Cup. I remember that. And ran, but again, a horse that he just can't run a bad race in terms he finished 3rd that day. Then he goes to the bench for 6 months because they really don't run him over there in the summer. Just recently came back on the Nippon TV High at Funabashi racecourse, and again makes this outside run. And you'll notice the sand-based surface of Japan. They don't like, Forever Young in particular does not love this surface. He was back early, throwing his head early in the race, really didn't like it. But I think it has more to do with just the texture of the kickback than kickback itself. But ultimately gets to that outside, and nice, very professional tune-up race over a nice field of Japanese horses, and comes out of this race looking very fit. So he's got a race under his belt now, makes the travel over here to the United States for the 3rd time. He's a very seasoned traveler. He travels to the Middle East all the time, has traveled over here. So I'm not expecting that to be an issue. For the Japanese have won Breeders' Cup races before, but obviously this would be the crown jewel.
Oh, obviously. I mean, I don't think anyone would be mad if this horse won.
No.
I mean, he's a really cool horse. Like you said, he's a world traveler. It would be awesome. But, just looking at those races over in Japan, it's really just hard to tell how this horse is going to stack up against deeper waters this year. I think Sierra Leone is a bit better than him, in my opinion. And that's my concern. I mean, to me, he doesn't fit in my top 4, but I won't be surprised when he shows up and runs a good race, and he's certainly not going to be out of it. Yeah,
listen, for me, he's a horse I very much so like. I've liked for a while, but then people who follow me for a while know I like my Japanese runners. I think that they are just kind of building things the right way. And I think Forever Young's a horse that has come back a little bit heavier than he was, kind of bulked up a little bit more from 3 to 4. Even within this year, he came back a little bit heavier than he was even in the Saudi Cup. The Saudi Cup and the Dubai World Cup. So it's good to see that he's continued to physically mature as he's gotten older into that 4-year-old year. And Yoshito Yahagi, obviously a world-class trainer, has won the Breeders' Cup with Love's Only You, brought them their first Breeders' Cup victory in Santa Anita a few years ago. So obviously trusted connections in this space. But Forever Young, going to be a really interesting horse, and one that's going to be exciting to see, obviously, when he comes over. And I know you and I are going to be out there. He's going to be under a microscope because I'm going to be interested to see, how does he look? How does he move? How's he taking to the track? That
you
sort of
saw
thing.
him last year for the first time, right? And I've never seen him before in person, so I'm really excited for that. And I want to see, how he looks next to the other horses. That's the most exciting part leading up to the Breeders' Cup, watching the morning work. So very interested to see. He's a really cool horse, and I'm happy he's coming.
I'm absolutely happy he's coming too. It really adds to the international nature of this race. We don't have a horse like City of Troy, for instance, coming over from Europe last year, a turf horse. So Forever Young is that international presence in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he more than belongs in this race. For me, he's an underneath play. For Kaylie, maybe a little bit deeper underneath, or maybe a little bit of a toss out of the superfecta. But listen, he's a lot of fun, and he's going to be a great horse to follow on the Breeders' Cup Classic trail. So make sure to press that like and subscribe button when you're watching and getting ready for all of our great Breeders' Cup content. My name is Matthew DeSantis. That's Kaylie Shapiro, wishing you a great, prosperous day at the races and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.